Welcome back to Bowl Game Radio with Bruce Binkowski and Mark Neville on San Diego's sports leader, the mighty 1090.
Welcome back, everybody, to Bowl Game Radio. I'm Mark Neville along with Bruce Binkowski. And a reminder that Bowl Game Radio is brought to you in part by San Diego County Credit Union. It's not big bank banking, it's better. And MJE Marketing. Creative, connected, and always curious. Visit mjemarketing.com.
And the streets of downtown San Diego come alive on December the 26th with a Port of San Diego Big Bay Balloon Parade, a production of the National University Holiday Bowl. This exciting family event brings together world-class marching bands, magnificent floats, entertaining drill teams, and a whole bunch of giant balloons, more than any other parade, including, what, Mark? Which parade?
The Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade.
We have more balloons.
We're huge.
Yes.
Huge.
The Port of San Diego Big Bay Balloon Parade. Now, if you are a regular attendee of the parade.
Are you a regular attendee of the parade?
Been there many years, every year. But it is on December the 26th, the day before the National University Holiday Bowl, in the afternoon at 3 o'clock. So make your plans. December the 26th, 3 o'clock, the Port of San Diego Big Bay Balloon Parade. And, of course, you can go to sandiegobowlgames.com and get all the parade information you need.
And, by the way, that parade is nationally televised. Will be on the USA Network as well. And also, don't miss the Dr. Pepper Stater Brothers tuition throw contest during the break between the third and fourth quarters of the National University Holiday Bowl. 3 lucky fans will compete against each other to see who can throw the most successful passes into giant Dr. Pepper cans and attempt to win $100,000 in tuition. Visit drpeppertouchdown.com for details. That's drpeppertouchdown.com.
And you're listening to Bowl Game Radio. I'm Bruce Binkowski along with Mark Neville, and we are here to talk college football and specifically our 2 bowl games, the San Diego County Credit Union Poinsettia Bowl, Tuesday, December the 23rd at Qualcomm Stadium, 6:30 p.m. kickoff, Mountain West team against a bowl-eligible Naval Academy. And then on December the 27th, the National University Holiday Bowl, Pac-12, Big Ten, a 5 o'clock kickoff. Order your tickets right now. Go to sandiegobowlgames.com. You can order your tickets or call during regular business hours, 619-283-5808, and we'll take care of you. Now, since we're talking college football, National University Holiday Bowl, Pac-12, joining us, Kevin Gemmell. He's the Pac-12 reporter for ESPN.com. He's been covering the Pac-12 for 3 years, college football for 8 years, and you can follow him on Twitter at ESPN_Pac-12 blog. Kevin, thanks for joining us.
Of course. Good to talk to you guys.
All right. Wait, he's been with us before.
He has. He's a returning guest.
You're a regular.
We love it.
We're going to put you on the spot tonight.
Just don't ask me to make sense of the Pac-12 South.
Well, we're going to ask. We're going to ask you to make
question.
sense of the Pac-12 South. So, actually, Kevin, coming into this year, into the season, the Pac-12 is really hailed as a top conference in the country, right up there with the SEC, really. And do you think halfway through the season, a little more than halfway through the season, the Pac-12 has lived up to its billing?
I think if you live on the West Coast and you follow Pac-12 football, then absolutely. I think if you live east of the Rockies and you don't stay up for those 7, 7:30, 8 o'clock kicks, then you probably look at some of the records and you don't buy into that. It's interesting because the Pac-12, it is as deep as it's ever been going back to the Pac-10 and Pac-8. Top to bottom, this is the toughest year it has ever been, I think. And when you look at, for example, the SEC, which is widely regarded as the best conference in college football, their parity is celebrated. But in the Pac-12, for some reason, there is this perception that parity equals mediocrity, and that's just not the case. It is so deep and so talented, and it is right up there in the conversation with the top conference in college football, without question.
And that's great news for the National University Holiday Bowl because we can pretty much guarantee we're going to have an outstanding team out of the Pac-12.
No question. No question.
All right, so we're a little bit past the midpoint of the season. So, we're again, just quick answers here. Surprise team. Who do you think is your biggest surprise? You, Kevin Gemmell, who's the surprise team out of the Pac-12 so far this year?
Right now, I would say Utah. I envisioned them taking a step forward this year, and I think they've taken a significant step forward so far. To be 6-1 at this point in the season, to have wins over both LA schools, I think it's a very, very impressive showing from them.
And they've been doing that also with 2 quarterbacks. Is that something that you think the success can continue with?
No, and they don't want to be doing it with 2 quarterbacks either. They pulled Travis Wilson when he wasn't playing great against UCLA. Kendall Thompson came in, and he was able to get that win for them. And then Kendall Thompson struggled against Oregon State, and Travis Wilson came in for the second half, and they won that game. And then Wilson started against USC, and they won last week. I think Kyle Whittingham is waiting for one of these 2 quarterbacks to separate themselves because he is not a fan of the 2 quarterback system.
And now the Utah schedule gets tough. It's been pretty tough, but it gets tougher. Arizona State, Oregon, Stanford, Arizona, Colorado. Do you see at least a couple of wins in that bunch?
You know what? For as deep as the conference is right now, they could lose all of those games. And I would not be surprised. And they could win all of them, and I would not be surprised. And they could win 3 and lose 2, and I would not be surprised. This is a team, remember, that hadn't won they've only won 1 game on the road in 2 years outside the state of Utah. They're perfect this season on the road, and they go to Tempe this weekend to see if they can move to 4-0. Oregon's going to be tough. Stanford's going to be tough, but remember that's the team they beat last year. Arizona's going to be tough. Colorado, they took UCLA double overtime last week. Every single one of those games is going to be a challenge.
So Utah is your surprise pick on the good side. What about on the other side? Are there any teams that have disappointed?
You know, I'm a little disappointed with UCLA just to be at 6-2. That's not to say that they're not a good football team, because they are. But I think when we saw them in the preseason, the expectation was that offensive line, which started 3 freshmen last year, would be better this year, that they would have made strides and that they would have been a more efficient group. And they've had some injuries, but we just haven't seen them out of that. But in the preseason, that looked like a team top to bottom. They did not have a lot of questions, and they just haven't played consistent football right now. I mean, they lost to Oregon. I wasn't shocked by that. Losing at home to Utah, I was a little surprised by that. So I would say UCLA is probably the team that I expected a little more out of at this point in the season.
You're listening to Bowl Game Radio on the Mighty 1090. I'm Bruce Binkowski along with Mark Neville, and we're speaking with Kevin Gemmell, Pac-12 reporter for ESPN.com, and certainly the National University Holiday Bowl is taking a close look at the Pac-12 because we'll have a Pac-12 versus a Big Ten team December the 27th at Qualcomm Stadium. This weekend, Kevin, a lot of big games, starting with Arizona. We're going to run down the list real fast to get your response. Arizona at UCLA. Who do you think?
You know, this game feels a lot like 2012 to me. Arizona was surging. UCLA was playing so-so, but not great. Arizona went into the Rose Bowl and got whooped 66-10. And I think that the double overtime game last week against Colorado was a real wake-up call for UCLA. This is put up or shut up time for the Bruins. I like them in this game. I think it's going to be a tough one because I've been impressed with what Arizona's been able to do with a redshirt freshman quarterback and a new Solomon. Those wide receivers are fantastic. I think UCLA still wins.
All right, we were talking about Utah just a little earlier. Utah at Arizona State. Big game for both schools.
Yeah, and I'm picking the Utes for the simple reason that I don't think Arizona State's defense is going to be able to stop running back Devontae Booker, who has surged in the last 4 or 5 games. He's been fantastic. Arizona State, remember, coming into the season, they had to replace 9 of 11 starters on that defense. They've been pretty good the last couple of games, but you look at the offenses that they've played the last couple of games, Washington and Stanford, 2 of the worst offenses in the Pac-12. I think Utah probably goes on the road and wins.
Now, all the games are important, but USC at Washington State, I would assume USC should be is favored to win that one.
They would be. They are favored to win that one. But here's the thing also. Washington State beat them at the Coliseum last year, 10-7. And that was a bit of a shocker. That was sort of the middle of the beginning of the end for the Lane Kiffin era at USC. Going to Pullman is not easy. That is a tough place to play. Connor Halliday is putting up record numbers for the Cougars in the air raid offense. It's still going to be a tough game, but I would expect USC to win.
And with Mike Leach at Washington State, you never know. He'll try and pull everything out of the hat he can.
No question.
Yeah. Washington at Colorado, again, even though it's a home game for Colorado, I would assume Washington favored?
Yeah, but that's not the walk in the park that it used to be. You just ask UCLA last week. The Bruins jumped out to a 17-0 lead, and then they find themselves in a double overtime situation against the Buffs. That is a team that has improved significantly under Mike McIntyre. They're not quite ready to take that next step yet, but that's a good football team. They got good players. Nelson Spruce is one of the best wide receivers in the country that people aren't talking about. Sophomore quarterback with Sefo Lufau, who's playing well enough for a sophomore. They're going to give Washington a tough time, but Washington's front seven is really dominant when you look at Danny Shelton there at the nose tackle, Shaq Thompson, who's been doing some time at running back, but one of the best linebackers in the country. Haoli Takaha on the defensive end there, one of the top tackles for loss and sack guys in the country. It's a good front seven.
Two more Pac-12 games to cover. Stanford at Oregon. Does Stanford have a chance at Oregon at all?
2 years ago, I said they have no chance with a kid named Kevin Hogan making his first road start. And sure enough, they go in and they beat the Ducks 17-14 in overtime. And then last year, I thought, Stanford doesn't have a chance against these guys. And sure enough, Tyler Gaffney, our own San Diego product, runs the ball 45 times and they win 26-20. I never want to say no, simply because the Pac-12 is crazy like that. However, with all that being said, Oregon, they're playing much better since they got Jake Fisher back on the offensive line. Marcus Mariota is a Heisman frontrunner for a reason. He is a phenomenal player. Stanford, they're having a lot of trouble on offense. I don't see them putting up the points to keep up with Oregon.
And Cal at Oregon State. Cal, much improved this year under Sonny Dykes.
Yeah, this is a huge swing game for both of those teams looking to get back into the postseason. They're both at 4 wins right now. Cal has done some really exciting things with Jared Goff. Just a fantastic young quarterback. Every coach I've talked to in the conference sings his praises. They think he's going to be something really, really special. He's got great wide receivers there with Treggs and Darius Poe and Chris Harper. The running game has been coming along. They use a 2-quarterback system there with Luke Benzer, the true freshman. He'll come in and he'll do some run option stuff. Oregon State, you can't count them out simply because of Sean Mannion. He's good chance this weekend to become the Pac-12's all-time leading passer. I think he needs 190-something yards, passing yards. They just haven't found a replacement yet for Brandon Cooks, last year's Biletnikoff winner, and so that offense has had some struggles. But if one of these teams wants to get to the postseason, this is a huge swing game.
You're listening to Bowl Game Radio, and we're talking with ESPN.com's Kevin Gemmell, and you can follow him on Twitter at ESPN_Pac-12 blog. Kevin, the College Football Playoff released its first top 25 poll, and Oregon, number 5 at 7-1. You got two teams from Mississippi up there, 3 SEC teams. Do you think that's a good spot for them, or should they be higher?
For the first poll, I'm not reading too much into it yet. I've been under the belief, and I still am, that whether we're talking about Oregon, Arizona State, or Utah, I do not see how a one-loss Pac-12 champion is left out of the playoff. The schedule that you have to go through in the Pac-12, playing a 9-game conference schedule, is absolutely brutal. And if you come out of that thing with only one loss, then absolutely 100% you deserve to be in the playoff. And I think the fact that we have people making these decisions and not computers anymore, that's where the human element will come in. Someone will stand up in that room and say, this is ridiculous. There should be a Pac-12 team in there. So I feel pretty confident if I'm Oregon. They've got the easiest road left of those 4 one-loss teams that I mentioned. Arizona State, and Utah, they're all going to beat each other up over the next couple of weeks. Oregon's got to get by Stanford. They've got to get by Utah. But if they do that and they get into this thing with only one loss, they'll be right there.
This is a very exciting year for college football, and a lot of that is driven because of the college football playoff. Are you a fan of the new system?
I got to see it actually play out, to be honest with you. Like most people, I think I'd like to see 8 teams, but maybe we'll get there in a few years. I want to see what the selection process is. They've been talking about strength of schedule is going to be an important element. They've been talking about it. I want to see them put it into practice. I want to see if maybe a 2-loss Pac-12 champion that played a tough schedule, let's say Oregon, just for kicks. Let's say they lose to Stanford or to Utah, but they still win the Pac-12 championship and they finish up at 10-2, having beaten Michigan State, having gone through the grind of a 9-game conference schedule in the Pac-12. Will that be enough for them over a one-loss team from, say, the Big 12 or the Big 10 who has not had the rigorous schedule that the Pac-12 has played. I'm curious to see how much weight they give the strength of schedule. So until we really know that, I'm going to reserve judgment.
Yeah, you mentioned you'd like to see it maybe go to 8 teams. I got to tell you, I am not a fan of that. I think 4 is good because it really protects the regular season. I mean, each of these games that are coming up between these one-loss teams, they're playoff games essentially.
I get that, and that's a fair point too. To me, I like the idea of if we're going to have a Power 5 conference set up and we're going to have these 5 power conferences having autonomy, then there should be something to winning that conference. And I think if you win your conference as part of those Power 5s, but you're left out, I think that leaves more room for debate. Whereas if you have 8, if you win your conference and you're part of the Power 5, you're in. If you're number 9, play better. You don't have a leg to stand on if you're number 9 and you're complaining. But if you're number 5 and you won your conference and you're one of the Power 5s and you get left out, I think that opens the door for some argument.
Well, as we know, regardless of how many teams are in a playoff, we've seen this in college basketball, that one team that is higher is not going to be happy.
That's a fair point, too. So, the system, I don't think, will ever be perfect given the way the setup is. I am excited, though, to actually see semifinal games and then those leading into a championship game.
And the good news, guys, is you can have this debate for at least another 5 to 6 years because I don't think it's going to change until about the midway point of the 12-year agreement.
It's fun to talk about.
So we'll be talking about this year, next year, and beyond. Kevin Gemmell, Pac-12 reporter for ESPN.com, thanks for joining us on Bowl Game Radio. And we'll be talking to you again as we get a little bit closer and we can finally pin down who's going to be playing in the National University Holiday Bowl.
Sounds good. I look forward to it, guys.
Thanks for the time, Kevin. We're going to take a break, and you're listening to Bowl Game Radio on the San Diego Bowl Game Media Network and the Mighty 1090.